The smell of rust and sweat filled the air. Inside a metal cage, under flickering lights, a young alien girl sat with her knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, marked with bruises. Her name was Kalira, but no one had called her that in years. She was known only as Item 43. The slave market was loud and cruel. Rich aliens laughed and drank as they looked at the cages. Some pointed, some whispered, some made rude jokes, and some came to buy. Kalira's cage was in the personal entertainment section, the worst part of the market. Every night, new girls were added. Every night, old ones disappeared. No one returned. A metal collar was tight around her neck. Chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her lips were dry. Her eyes were empty. Suddenly, the lights brightened. A voice echoed across the market. Next item. Personal slave, ex-noble stock, lightly trained, a little bruised but still pretty. Opening bid, 10 credits. Kalira didn't move. She had been through this before. No one ever bought her. She was called used, broken, not fun anymore. Still, she was forced to stand. The cage door opened. 2 guards pulled her out and dragged her to the stage. She tried not to fall. Her legs were weak. The crowd whistled, some booed. Others laughed. 5 credits. One drunk alien shouted, 2. Another yelled, laughing. A whip cracked behind Kalira's back. She flinched but didn't cry. Crying didn't help. Come on. The auctioneer shouted. She may be silent, but she's got spirit. Then, everything stopped. Footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Someone was walking toward the stage, but not like the others. No loud laughter. No shouting. A tall figure stepped into the light. It was a human. The crowd went quiet. Humans were rare here. Most aliens thought of them as weak or boring. They didn't usually come to places like this. The man wore dark armor, dusty from travel. His eyes were sharp and calm. A blaster hung at his side, untouched. He looked at Kalira, and for the first time, someone didn't look through her. He looked at her. The auctioneer smiled awkwardly. Ah, human buyer. Looking for something fun tonight? The human didn't answer. He raised one hand. Then, with 2 fingers, he pulled a single coin from his pocket. 1 credit, he said softly. The crowd burst into laughter. 1 credit? For that thing? Waste of money. She's not even worth the food. But the auctioneer paused. He looked at the human's face and saw something that made him stop smiling. No one else bidding? The auctioneer asked quickly. Silence. Sold. 1 credit. The crowd kept laughing as the human stepped forward. The guards shoved Kalira off the stage and handed her over. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. She didn't understand. As the human turned and walked away, she followed, her chains dragging behind her. She expected pain soon. Maybe worse. They walked through the market. Everyone stared. Some mocked. Some looked confused. Look at that human, one alien said. Bought garbage for fun. Kalira kept her head down. Her heart beat fast. Her legs shook. He led her outside the market, across the dusty plains to a small old ship. The door opened with a hiss, and warm air touched her skin for the first time in weeks. He guided her inside. Quiet, still no commands, no shouting. The ship door closed. They were alone. He turned to her. She didn't look up. Sit, he said. Gently, she obeyed quickly, falling to her knees. He walked past her, opened a small box, and pulled out a blanket. Then, without a word, he walked back and placed it over her shoulders. Kalira froze. She had been touched before by cruel hands, rough and painful. But this was soft. She slowly looked up. The human knelt down beside her. You're safe now, he said. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She didn't believe him. Couldn't. He stood again and walked to the ship's control panel. The engines. began to hum. Kalira sat quietly, fingers gripping the blanket like it was the only real thing in her world. She whispered a question, her voice like wind. Why? Did you buy me? The human didn't turn around. Because no one else did, he said. Outside, the stars moved slowly across the sky. Inside, for the first time in years, Kalira felt something strange in her chest. It wasn't fear. It was hope. Kalira did not sleep. She sat in the corner of the ship, her back against the cold wall, the blanket still wrapped around her thin body. She watched the human silently as he moved around the small space-checking wires, typing into glowing screens, adjusting controls, like it was all normal. But for her, nothing was normal. No one had ever given her anything. Not food, not rest, not warmth, only orders. Only pain. But now, this stranger had given her a blanket, not for trade, not for use. Just given. Her mind couldn't understand it. Her body waited, tense, for the punishment that would surely follow. It always did. The human finally spoke without turning around. You can sleep. We'll reach my outpost in 4 hours. No one will hurt you here. Kalira didn't answer. She had learned silence was safer than speech. The human walked to a cabinet, opened it, and pulled out something soft. It looked like food, fresh, real. He placed it on a tray and set it near her without getting too close. Eat, he said simply. She stared at it. It smelled good, too good. Her stomach growled, but she didn't move. Was it poisoned? Was this a test? She remembered once being offered food, then beaten when she reached for it. The human noticed her fear. His voice softened. You don't have to trust me, he said, kneeling down. Just eat, or you'll get sick. Slowly, with shaking hands, she took a bite. It was warm. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. He didn't laugh. He didn't mock. He just watched her quietly, then stood up and returned to his seat. Kalira ate slowly, as if the meal might disappear if she chewed too fast. For a long time there was silence. The ship hummed. Stars blinked through the window. Finally, she dared to speak. What do you want from me? The human looked at her then, really looked at her, and said something she had never heard from any master, buyer, or handler. Nothing. Kalira froze. Her lips trembled. Her hands clutched the tray. Nothing? He nodded. You're not a thing to own. You're a person. Her chest hurt. Not from pain, from confusion. From something new. She looked down. I don't remember how to be a person. The human stood slowly, walked to her. Sat on the floor just a few feet away. Then we'll start small, he said. What's your name? She hesitated. Her name was Kalira, but she hadn't spoken it aloud in years. She had forgotten how it felt in her mouth. Kalira, she whispered. The human smiled. Not wide, not fake, just real. Kalira, he repeated gently. I'm Jacob. Her eyes widened. He had a name too. He offered his hand. She stared at it, unsure. But then, very slowly, she reached out and touched it. It was warm. Not burning, not grabbing, just warm. For the first time in a long time, Kalira felt something like peace. But peace doesn't last forever. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the ship. Jacob turned toward the screen. His face changed. Kalira sat up afraid. What is it? She asked. He stood quickly. Trouble. A red light flashed on the dashboard. A message appeared on the screen. Kalira read the words and her heart dropped. Incoming patrol, Slaver Guild. Scanning nearby ships. She gasped. No, they found me. They're coming. Jacob didn't waste time. He pressed buttons, started engines, locked doors. Get in the back room, now. Kalira grabbed her blanket, panicking. You don't understand. If they catch you hiding me, they'll kill you. Jacob looked her in the eyes. Let them try. The ship shook as it lifted into space, engines roaring. Outside, A dark slaver ship approached fast. Inside, Kalira hid in the shadows, clutching the blanket Jacob gave her, heart-pounding. And for the first time, she wanted to live. The mirror showed her face, but she didn't recognize it. Kalira stood inside the ship's small washroom, staring at her reflection. Her fingers traced the metal collar still locked around her neck. Her hair was messy, her cheekbones sharp from hunger. But something had changed. Her eyes, they didn't look empty anymore. Behind her, the soft hum of the ship continued as it flew through open space. Jacob, the human, had tricked the slaver patrol by rerouting power and hiding her heat signature. It worked for now, but Kalira couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, but from something deeper. She didn't feel like Item 43 anymore. She felt like someone. Her reflection blinked. Kalira, she whispered to the mirror. It felt strange. My name is Kalira. It had once meant Song of the Wind in her native language. Her mother used to sing it when she was small. She touched the collar again. She wanted it off. But more than that, she wanted to believe she was really free. In the cockpit, Jacob was scanning for nearby planets to rest. He glanced over his shoulder. When she stepped in, she looked different somehow. Taller, like she was standing straighter. You all right? He asked. She nodded. Then, her voice quiet but strong, she asked, Will you teach me how to be a person again? Jacob leaned back in his seat, surprised. You already are, he said. Kalira shook her head. No, I only know how to serve, how to survive, not how to live. Jacob thought for a moment. Then he pointed to a simple object near her. Start by picking that up and handing it to me. She blinked, confused. It's just a tool. Right. And you're not doing it because I ordered you. You're helping. That's what people do for each other. She picked it up, handed it over. Something warm stirred in her chest again. Then he said something she didn't expect. I'm going to remove your collar now. Kalira froze. What? Jacob walked over, holding a small cutting tool. You're not property. That thing doesn't belong on you. She stepped back, hand over her neck. I don't know who I am without it. Jacob didn't move closer. You're Kalira. That's enough. She looked at him, eyes wide, breathing fast. She thought about all the times someone had grabbed her by that collar, yanked her, controlled her. But now, someone was offering to free her from it, slowly, trembling. She nodded. Jacob raised the tool and carefully cut through the metal. The collar dropped to the floor with a soft clink. Kalira reached up and touched her bare neck. Tears slid down her cheeks. It was gone. The weight she had carried for years. Gone. She looked at Jacob. What happens now? She whispered. He gave her a soft smile. You live. You heal. You learn who you really are. Suddenly, the ship's screen beeped. Jacob turned. His smile faded. Pirates, he said, frowning. 2 ships approaching fast. Kalira stood beside him. I can help, she said. He glanced at her. You don't have to. I want to. Jacob handed her a headset. Then sit beside me. Let's get through this together. She nodded. Kalira was no longer a slave. She was Kalira, and she was ready to fight for her new life. The message on the screen flashed red. Identity match. Stolen property located. Slaver Guild claims ownership. Surrender the female or face consequences. Jacob stared at the message, his jaw tight. The words felt like poison. Kalira stood beside him, frozen. They know, she whispered. They know I'm with you. Jacob didn't speak at first. He shut off the screen, turned slowly, and looked at her. Do you want to go back? He asked calmly. Her eyes widened. What? I said, if you want to go back, say it. I won't stop you. Your choice. Kalira felt her chest tighten. Back? Back to chains, to cold rooms, to hands grabbing her without asking? Back to being Item 43? She shook her head. No, I'd rather die. Jacob nodded once. Good, he said, turning back to the controls. Then they'll have to go through me. Minutes later, the ship touched down on a quiet, rocky moon barren with only sharp cliffs and wind-blown dust. Jacob checked the weapons locker. They'll be here in less than an hour. Kalira followed him silently. She saw the way his hands moved, fast, steady, calm. He wasn't just any human. He had training, experience, but why was he risking everything? For her, she finally asked, "Why are you doing this?" He stopped. Not looking at her, he said, "Because someone has to. You didn't deserve what they did. You deserve a life." Kalira lowered her head. "But I'm just one girl." Jacob turned and looked her straight in the eyes. "You're not just anything." When the enemy ship landed, it came with noise and dust. Slaver Guild enforcers stepped out, tall, armored, armed. Their leader, a thick, gray-skinned alien, walked forward, grinning. "Human," he shouted, "turn her over. She's marked property of the guild. You stole from us." Jacob stepped in front of Kalira. His voice was calm but sharp. "She's not property, not anymore." The slaver laughed. "Who are you to decide that?" Jacob raised his weapon. "I'm the man standing between her and the hell you call justice." The slaver's face darkened. "You'd risk your life for her?" Jacob didn't blink. "I already have." Kalira stood behind him, heart pounding. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. This man, a stranger just days ago, was now her shield. Her hope. And he had made his choice. He chose her. The battle that followed was quick and violent. Blaster fire lit up the moon's surface. Rocks shattered. Smoke filled the air. Jacob fought like a soldier who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Kalira ducked behind cover, praying he wouldn't fall. When the last shot rang out, it was quiet again, and Jacob was still standing, bruised, burned, but breathing. He turned to her, breathing hard. "They won't come back soon. We have time." Kalira ran to him, grabbed his hand with both of hers. "I don't want time," she whispered, voice breaking. "I want a future." Jacob looked at her, surprised. Then he smiled, tired but real. "Then let's build one together." Kalira had never flown a ship before, but tonight she had to, because Jacob was bleeding and unconscious, and the enemy was still chasing them. 1 hour earlier, Jacob had collapsed in the cockpit, his sides soaked in red. He had fought off the slavers with fire in his eyes, but when it was over, he fell without a word. Kalira screamed his name. No answer. Now, she sat in the pilot's seat, hands shaking on the controls, trying to remember everything he once told her during short talks and quiet moments. Right lever is thrust, left controls pitch, green light good. Red light, don't trust it. The panel was full of red lights. The ship was barely flying. Behind them, a Slaver Guild drone locked on their position. Its weapons were charging. Kalira hit every button she could find. The ship jolted, swerved. Alarms screamed. "Hold on," she whispered. "Don't die. Not after everything." She slammed the throttle. The stars outside twisted. The drone fired but missed. Jacob's ship dove into a nearby atmosphere. An icy moon glowing white below. Kalira didn't know if the ship would survive the landing. She didn't care. As long as Jacob lived. As long as they lived. The crash was a scream of metal and light. The ground came up fast. The ship tore across frozen stone, flipped once, then slammed into a jagged CLIFFSID. Silence. Snow drifted across the wreck. Then, a hand moved. Single quotes Lyra. Her lip was bleeding. Her left arm was numb. But she was alive. She dragged herself through the smoke, coughing, searching. Jacob! He lay near the wall, still breathing barely. She fell beside him, checked his pulse, then cradled his head in her lap. "You're not allowed to leave me," she said, voice cracking. "You saved me. Now it's my turn." Hours passed. Night came. The cold grew sharp enough to cut skin. Kalira sealed the broken cockpit with scraps. She found a survival blanket, wrapped it around them both. She boiled water using a small emergency tool, pressed it to Jacob's lips. He groaned, waking slightly. "Where?" He whispered. She smiled through tears. "Crashing on a moon." "You?" "No, just a normal day." He gave the tiniest grin, then coughed in pain. "Don't talk," she said. "Rest. I'll keep us alive." Jacob closed his eyes again, and for the first time since her life was taken from her, Kalira chose to survive. Not for herself, but for him, outside. The snow howled. Inside the broken ship. An ex-slave held a human soldier close his life in her hands. She wasn't just a rescued girl anymore. She was becoming something new. Someone stronger. The first time Kalira ever held a weapon was to protect someone else, not herself. Not out of fear, but to protect him. The cold outside had turned cruel. The broken shuttle was no longer enough to keep them warm. Jacob's condition had worsened, his fever rising, his voice fading. Kalira did everything she could. Found rations, boiled snow for water, cleaned his wounds with her own clothes. But her heart knew the truth. If help didn't come, he wouldn't survive. And that's when she saw it, a red dot blinking on the scanner. Incoming ship. Her heart lifted. Maybe rescue? Then the code flashed on screen. S9 Guild Scavenger Salvage. Order: retrieve living property if found. Her blood went cold. They weren't here to help. They were here to take her back. She looked at Jacob, still unconscious, barely breathing. She looked at the rusty old blaster Jacob kept under the floor. Panel. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Kalira had never fired a weapon before, but today she would learn. The guild ship landed hard on the icy ground. Its lights swept across the wreckage like angry eyes. 3 armored slaver soldiers stepped out, scanning for life. "She should be in there," one of them growled. "Humans probably dead. Grab her and go." Kalira's body trembled behind the shattered doorway. But she didn't hide. She didn't run. She stood, tall, blaster in both hands, heart pounding like thunder. As the first slaver stepped in, Kalira shouted, "Stay back." He laughed. "You, holding a weapon?" She fired. The bolt hit his shoulder. He dropped with a scream. The others drew their weapons and rushed her position. Kalira ducked behind the broken hull. "I won't let you take him. I won't go back." She wasn't fighting for freedom anymore. She was fighting for Jacob, for the man who gave her a name, for the man who gave her hope. Blaster fire lit up the ship. Kalira moved fast, firing, dodging, breathing heavy. A memory flashed in her mind, Jacob's voice on the ship days ago. "If you're scared, it means you care. Use that. Focus." She shouted in fury and fired again, this time hitting the second slaver in the leg. The third rushed her, ready to strike her down, and then Jacob's blaster fired from behind her. The last slaver dropped. Kalira turned in shock. Jacob stood, barely blood on his lips, holding himself up against the wall. "You ... stood for me," he said, his voice weak. She ran to him, catching him as he collapsed again. "You saved me first," she whispered. "I'm just returning it." They sat together under the broken roof, surrounded by smoke and silence. Jacob leaned against her. And for the first time in her life, Kalira felt strong, not because she had power, but because she had someone worth protecting. The sun rose slowly over the frozen moon, turning the ice into gold. Kalira stood at the top of a hill, her bare feet sinking into soft snow, her eyes watching the light touch the broken ship below. She had survived chains. She had survived war. And now she had survived herself. Behind her, inside the ship, Jacob slept quietly for the first time in days. His fever was gone. His wounds were healing. His breathing was steady. But Kalira's heart, WSN single quotes, did not anymore. It was racing. Because today, she had decided something. She wasn't going to wait for fate. She was going to ask Dot later. She stepped inside the ship again, nervous for the first time in her new life. Jacob looked up from his seat. He smiled. "You're walking like someone with a plan." She nodded. "I have one." He raised an eyebrow. "Tell me." Kalira didn't speak right away. Instead, she walked close enough to see the lines under his eyes, the strength. In his scars, the softness in his gaze. She took a deep breath. "I was given to you as property," she said softly. Broken, afraid, silent. Jacob looked at her, quietly listening. "But you never treated me like a thing. You gave me food, warmth, a name, a choice." She paused, voice shaking. "And now, I want to give you something." Jacob stood slowly. "What is it?" Kalira stepped forward and placed her hand over his heart. "Me." His eyes widened. "I want to be with you," she said, barely holding back tears. "Not because I have to, but because I choose to. I choose you, Jacob. Will you choose me too?" Silence. Dot. Then Jacob reached up and touched her cheek, gently. "I already did," he whispered. Dot outside. The wind blew soft across the snow. Dot inside. Two souls, once lost, once chained, once worlds apart, stood close enough to hear each other's heartbeats. Jacob leaned in, and their foreheads touched. "I'm not a hero," he said. Kalira smiled. "You were to me." He kissed her, gentle, warm, real. No collars, no orders, no fear. Just choice, just love. Final scene. Weeks later, a rescue ship arrived. They were taken to a human colony, a quiet place on the edge of the galaxy. Kalira was offered shelter, clothing, her own room. She politely refused the separate room. She had already chosen her home, and it was Jacob.